Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Screenstars and welcome to another classic Halloween film. Today I'm taking a look at the 1998 Halloween film Halloween H2O 20 years later. The film is directed by Steve Miner and it stars Jamie Lee Curtis, Adam Arkin, Michelle Williams, Josh Hartnett. We have LL Cool J, Joseph Gordon-Levitt. And the film follows Laurie Strode, Jamie Lee Curtis, who is now the headmistress of a well-to-do private school in California. She's never recovered from that night in 1978. She still carries those demons with her, but she now has a son who is 17 years old, played by Josh Hartnett. But Michael Myers is back. He has discovered where Laurie is now located by rifling through what used to be Dr. Loomis's house. He leaves his mark there, gets the information he needs, and heads off to track down Laurie Strode, as he intends to return to his killing ways and end the life of his sister. Right. What are my thoughts on Halloween H2O? Now, I remember the build-up to this coming out. There was a big hoo-ha about it. Jamie Lee Curtis returning to the franchise 20 years after. And there was a lot of excitement leading up to this film. And I remember being very excited leading up to this film, and I went to the cinema to see this one. And I bloody loved it. Still really enjoy this film, I'm not going to lie. It's kind of, I think, been kind of shuffled down as the years have gone on and the continuous reboots and all this kind of stuff have happened. But at the time, this was a very, very popular film, if you like. It did well at the cinema. It was, from what I remember at the time, it was well reviewed. And it felt like, a real big cinema outing for the Halloween franchise. And for me, it's always been a little bit of a favourite of mine, this one, Halloween H2O. I mean, they got Kevin Williamson on board to do the writing, and if you don't know who that is, that's the guy that wrote the Scream films. He was really big in the 90s sort of thing. Pretty much every horror franchise, he had a pop at writing something to do with them. Steve Miner, the director, who'd, directed things like Warlock and a couple of Friday the 13th films, he knew what he was doing with movies like this. And then obviously you've got this concept of bringing Jamie Lee Curtis back as Laurie Strode. She faked to death and has kind of relocated herself in the hope that her brother would never find her again, even though it's presumed he's dead at the end of the second one. But she's kind of never been able to move on and never really believed that. But I think this film was kind of a great idea, and it's the shortest film in the franchise as well. It's very, very tightly paced as this one. It doesn't mess about at all. Gets straight to it. You're introduced to the characters quickly, and off we go. We're off to the races with this one. Moves along at a thunderous pace, which I actually quite like in regards to this. There's no baggage, there's no cushioning, there's no long dialogues or anything like that. And I liked it. I thought Jamie Lee Curtis' performance was fantastic. A different type of trauma from Laurie than with the one we saw in 2018. In the 2018 Halloween, she was turned into more of a survivalist. In this one, she's kind of like a functioning alcoholic, really. Never really been able to move on particularly well with her life. And there's a great scene in this, I think. It's one of my favourites, where her lover, played by Adam Arkin, she explains who she is to him, and it gives me chills when I kind of watch that scene. I just think it's so brilliantly done. There's some other good scenes in this film as well. The scene in the bathroom where the woman takes her daughter to the bathroom, and then you see that hand coming under and grabbing the purse and pulling it out. You're just kind of like, oh my god. But he shows mercy. Now, I suppose you could point a little bit of criticism at this in regards to a couple of things, really. The mask is, I don't think it's as bad as the Halloween 4 mask. However, Michael has been off the scene for 20 years. What's he been doing for 20 years? That mask would be a state after him wearing it for 20 years. What's he been doing? So the mask doesn't really make a huge amount of sense to me, the one that he wears in this film. And like I say, it looks a bit too, the hair's literally all over the place, so I think it could have been groomed a bit better. That's my observation. And I do think a couple of times in this film, Michael Myers comes across as a bit timid. Now, what I mean by that is that very scene I've just mentioned where he's in the that mother and daughter go in the restroom, and he basically grabs the bag so he can get the keys for the vehicle. The Michael Myers that kind of I knew probably wouldn't have shown that kind of mercy. I might be wrong. There are scenes, certainly the first Halloween, where he stops Tommy from bumping into him, but he doesn't do anything. But it's broad daylight, and there's another scene in the film that I think emphasises this when he's trying to get into this school, and LL Cool J's character goes out, opens the gates, and turns the engine off at the car, and you see Michael Myers just walk past him. Now that might make it for a creepy scene, but again, the Michael Myers that I knew would have just killed him there and then. That's it. He would have been gone. So there's a couple of scenes that I don't think make a huge amount of sense here. But there's also a couple of scenes that make him appear to be incredibly spooky and creepy and, otherworldly. The scene where he kills Adam Arkin's character and he's kind of lifting him off the floor on pretty much with one hand, it looked like. And Adam Arkin's shaking about and stuff. I just think that is such a great scene. And that other scene where he kind of lowers himself down with one arm behind Laurie, was just fantastic. Do you know what I mean? So I think this has some strong moments in it, this one, Halloween H2O. I think it's a fine addition to the franchise that unfortunately is kind of, I think, been lost a little bit in the shuffle and completely ruined by that god-awful sequel to this, Halloween Resurrection, which is absolute dog shit. I really struggled to rewatch that one. I may rewatch it one day and do a review on it on the channel, but I remember it being absolutely terrible. And the whole retconning of the ending of this, the fact that it wasn't Michael Myers whose head she chopped off, it was some paramedic driver. You just kind of, behave yourselves. So I don't like that fact, sort of thing. The ending, I think, worked really well for this. But we all know, or you might not know, that Mustafa Akkad has got some rules that he sets for the Halloween films that he was in charge of, that Michael Myers can't die. So he never intended to kill him off, really, which royally pissed off Jamie Lee Curtis, from what I understand. The ending here I thought worked really well, but it was completely ruined by the next film, which diluted, I think, parts of this film for sure. And interestingly as well, you may not know this, John Carpenter was actually supposed to direct this film. They wanted to bring him on board to direct. He was interested. However, he demanded, I think, up to £10 million fee to direct the film, and that was, from his mind, the money that he was owed from the original that he never got from Mustafa Akkad. So he kind of wanted, a bit of compensation for all the efforts that he's put into this franchise. They didn't want to pay that kind of money, so unfortunately, he never returned to direct this one. But honestly, while I do think that's a shame, I also think that Steve Miner does a very, very good job here. I think it's well directed. It's paced very, very nicely. It looks great. There's some really, I think, iconic Halloween moments here. I love that opening as well, with Joseph Gordon-Levitt and the whole, him killing off the nurse at the beginning, and then it cuts to them detectives that are talking about Michael Myers, and then boom, the credits start. I mean, I remember at the cinema that bit, and I got proper goosebumps when it did that and the music started. So I think it's a fine addition. I'm quite a big fan of this one. Let me know your thoughts on this and the Halloween franchise, and I will of course be back with plenty more content on the channel very, very soon.